I used to lose so many fish on a drop shot.
There. Oh, came off.
In today's video, I want to share with you guys the 4 tips that I've learned to help me hook and land more smallmouth bass on a drop shot. Let's dive into this thing. Smallmouth bass are notorious for coming off. I'm sure you've had it happen if you smallmouth fish for any period of time. You'd have one hooked, he'd be fighting back to the boat, he'd jump, your drop shot goes one way, the fish goes back to the bottom of the lake, and you have another fish story. Well, this was happening to me time and time again, and I've spent the last couple of seasons really trying to dial in my drop shot setup so this doesn't happen anymore. Now, in today's video, I want to share with you guys the 4 things that I've learned, the tips that I've incorporated into my drop shot setup to help me hook and land more bass. Tip number 1 is that color matters sometimes. And this is going to be the most subjective piece of advice that I'm going to give you in today's video. We all have our favorite patterns. We all have the favorite bait that works on our home body of water, but I want to help you understand how I have simplified my drop shot color selection to carry 3 baits for any situation anywhere across the country. The way I've broken my system down is into 3 different colors: a clean water color, a confidence bait color that I can fish in all clarities in all situations, and a dirty water color. And those colors are brownback, smoke black purple, and mango magic. With these 3 colors, I can go anywhere in the country and be confident that I'm going to catch fish. My number 1 go-to color is going to be brownback. And the reason that brownback is so effective is that it's a very neutral, versatile color. You have a little bit darker back, you have a pearl whitish belly, and it's a color that can be fished in all water clarities effectively and can imitate a variety of different forage types. With that light brown back and the white base, it can imitate gobies, small bait fish, and a variety of different forage types, but also is neutral enough to be fished in super clean water or moderately dirty water clarities. So this is my all-around go-to bait color. Anytime that water gets dirty on me or I notice those fish are feeding on perch, this mango magic color is going to be the color that I pick up. And the reason for that is that darker base mixed with that gold and that purple flake seems to really imitate those perch effectively, but it stands out in silhouettes in that darker water. And when I'm fishing around really clean water situations, smoke black purple gets the nod. Even though this might look like a dark base color to you guys, when you put this in the sun and when you put this in that clean water, it gets very translucent and that purple seems to shine. I think there's a lot of purple in your gobies. There's also some purple sheens in a lot of your bait fish. So the smoke purple black flake is a very effective color and my go-to when I'm fishing clean water situations. Now, I know there's going to be a lot of controversy. People are going to have their favorite patterns, their go-to colors, or colors that will just work more effectively on their body of water. But I would recommend picking 3 colors that you have confidence in: 1 for clean water, 1 for neutral water clarity, and 1 for dirty water that you can rotate between using these tips that I've given you. Tip number 2, consider your leader length. And this is the number 1 question that I get when I start talking about drop shot fishing is how long should my leader length be? How do I know what length to make my leader? As a general rule of thumb, I start with a longer leader and I work my way shorter if I'm not getting bites. But a couple of other factors to keep in mind: the cover you're fishing around, the forage that you're fishing around, whether it's bait fish or gobies, and how you're fishing for these bass, and use that to determine your leader length. If you're fishing around grass, I really like to have a longer leader that presents my bait above the grass that I'm fishing. So if I'm fishing around perch grass or I'm fishing around grass that comes a foot off the bottom, I want my bait to stay just above that grass line, so any smallmouth that might be roaming around, visual feeders, are going to see my bait and it's going to be an easy target and meal. If you're dropping on these fish, you can go with the shorter leader because you're vertically fishing for them, and that bait's going to be presented however long your leader length is up off the bottom. If you're casting for these fish, you can go with a longer leader length because your bait's going to be at an angle, and even though you might have a 30-inch leader, your bait may only be 10, 12, 15 inches off of the bottom. I got picker-packered. First cast. Thank you.
Fish, dude.
Thanks, buddy.
4 pounds, 4.5. 4.
Maybe 4. So keep those things in mind. Typically, I'm around 12 to 36 inches, depending on those conditions. But factor in your leader length if you don't think you're getting the bites that you should be getting. Tip number 3, lighten your weight. This has been the number 1 thing that I've seen help me land more bass. Going with a lighter weight not only gives your bait better action, not only allows you to have a more positive hook set, but gives that fish less leverage when they're fighting to throw your bait. As a general rule of thumb, you want to use the lightest weight possible where you can still maintain bottom contact. Going with a 1/4 ounce when you're fishing in shallower water or grass situations is going to allow that bait to have more action. But if you start to lose contact with bottom, go up to a 3/8. A half if you're fishing in really deep water or windy, wavy conditions. And at max, I would recommend a 3/4. But as a general rule of thumb, a 1/4 ounce and a 3/8 should be about all you need. With those two size weights, you can fish a variety of different conditions. You can fish up to 40 foot deep. And I think, in my opinion, those are the best size weights that's going to give you the most positive hookup to land ratio. And finally, tip number 4, use a more moderate action rod. I learned this the hard way. I custom built myself a beautiful rod. It was a medium extra fast because to my understanding an extra fast rod meant more sensitivity. Wrong. It doesn't mean more sensitivity. Going with a high-end medium light fast action or medium moderate fast action rod is going to land you so many more fish. And the reason for this is that the rod is slower, so it unloads and loads much more easily with those fish. The biggest thing with smallmouth is they like to surge, they like to run down, and having a rod that will follow the action of that fish in the water is going to help you land more fish because you're not going to introduce slack to your line.
Oh, came off.
When that fish comes up to jump and you have an extra fast rod, it wants to unload really quick, throw slack in the line, and that's when that fish has the opportunity to throw your weight. With a rod that's a slower action, like this TFO 7-1 medium light fast action, which in my opinion fishes more like a medium moderate fast, it allows me to maintain connection with that fish. Super sensitive rod, but still when that fish comes to fight me and he jumps, this rod's not going to unload super fast, and when that fish goes to surge, it's going to be light enough that it can follow that fish down.
Giant smallmouth. Yes.
The last thing you want is put in unnecessary tension or slack in the line. It's going to allow this little hook to pull free from that bass. So with these 4 tips, I believe that you can land more smallmouth bass and bring your hookup ratio closer to 100% on a drop shot. I've grown so much confidence in this technique because I know when I have one hooked, I'm almost guaranteed to land that bass. And this is something that I take a lot of pride and confidence in. If there are tips that you guys think that I'm missing, feel free to drop them down in the comment section below. But I hope that these 4 tips will help you guys go out and have confidence fishing a drop shot. Selecting the right color, using the right leader length, changing your weight to go lighter, and using the right rod are going to help you guys hook and land more smallmouth bass the next time you're fishing a drop shot. Now, if you guys want to see some more drop shot content, here's some more tips right here, and here's me putting it into action on some giant smallmouth bass. Really appreciate you guys watching. If you're not already subscribed, hit the subscribe button. Take care, tight lines, God bless, pursue passion.